I would love to have you kick it off by having you tell us about you, your journey to where you are now, and really your role and where you've been spending your time.
Sure. Well, that was a big question. I mean, all right. Well, I'm Erin Levzow. You already did a great job introducing me, Vice President of Marketing Technology for Del Taco Restaurants. I took the leap and jumped jobs, careers mid-pandemic. So I joined Del Taco September of last year. Prior to that, I was the Chief Marketing Officer at Marcus Hotels and Resorts, which is Milwaukee-based, Wisconsin. That's where I live. But hotels and resorts throughout the US. So it was interesting listening to Marriott talk about their data-driven platform as well. I have a wealth of experience in casinos, hospitality, resorts, and then food and beverage and restaurants. So I'm excited to be talking with you today.
Fantastic. All right. So I'm just going to start with a fun one. What excites you about data and technology from a marketing perspective?
So I love data, and I've always been a geek about data because I think I am a millennial. I am one of what the comedian calls elder millennials. So it means grew up analog and then learned digital. And I've always been a data geek when it comes to like, what does someone know about me and how can it be best used? So when people ask me like, how did you find that? I'm like, everything's on the internet. That's just how it works. And I joke with folks that like, it's kind of like ethical hacking, what we're able to do and how we're able to utilize data in a positive way, right? Not in a negative way.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. So obviously a big part of your role is the technology side of it and martech. So this is generally an overwhelming topic for a lot of marketers, right? Their digital technology and where they invest and what they need to invest in. So what does Del Taco's martech stack look like?
So ours is ever evolving and changing, but it's interesting because it used to be like someone would go, what is your tech stack? And it would be like, it goes this and then this and then and it's no longer, right? Like there's so many different buckets and it's more of like a bubble chart than like a old school food pyramid. And it would be like, well, IT functions on this foundation, then it's all built up from there. But now there's so many different things. And I think what we're seeing is marketing technology and marketing as a whole are starting to take onus from the IT technology teams and go, no, let us be the platform. Let us house this information. We don't need you to house it. Like, what if we work together on that? And I think that's where my position kind of mirrors both sides and brings it together, because you don't see a lot of restaurant companies out there saying like, let's have a marketing technology professional. They have a technology or they have a marketing person or a digital person. And so to ladder both. We use NCR Aloha in our restaurants and then everything's built out from there. So lots of different technology. And I can tell you that we are ever evolving, ever changing, and gearing up for a loyalty release here in soon, very soon.
Yes, I love that. I've got questions for you on that later, but I agree. It's definitely shifted a lot from an IT focus to more of a marketing focus. And we now have more access to that data that can be a little bit more usable than maybe it once was, right? So how would you recommend someone prioritize all of these different technologies that are now available to them at their fingertips and really help them navigate the amount of data available?
Yeah, so good question. I'll tell you, whenever I've worked with a recruiter in the past, one of the questions they'll ask me is, how big of a team have you worked with? How big of a budget have you worked with? And I've worked with big budgets. I've worked with big teams, but what draws a true marketer is when they work with small budgets and small teams. And because of the word you use, which is prioritize, how do you prioritize? And that makes a good marketer. And you don't just do it in marketing technology and different pieces of data. You do it everywhere in your career. And that's how you know you're successful. So how do you prioritize marketing technology and different data pieces that you have? It's based on what's going to drive the business forward. And it sounds so simple and so crazy that someone's like, well, no, but how do you do it? Well, you do it by laying it all out, right? Designing it all out, looking at the cost, the level of effort, and then what your reward is, right? Like is this going to drive the business? Is this going to help you with franchisees? What is it going to do for you? And then you prioritize that way. And sometimes something that has a high level of effort might have a high payout, and you start to scale it out, right? We do the same thing when, like, let's say we're remodeling a hotel. We do the same thing. Like, how much level of effort and investment versus what's the payout for the customer, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And I think, one thing that you and I were talking about previously when it comes to technology and investments is personalization. I feel like that's a real hot topic that a lot of companies talk about, that they want to personalize. That's the way to win. That's how we want to utilize our data. But in a lot of cases, it's not actually personalization, right? So
Yeah.
what does personalization mean for Del Taco?
Yeah, I think it's personalization is a buzzword that just every time someone's like, don't you want a personalized experience? I was like, what does that mean? Like, is it to me? Like, is this shirt really for me? Or is this the same shirt you sell to everyone? Right. So it is, first we start with segmentation, right? Do you like vegan tacos versus beef tacos versus chicken tacos, right? That's just segmentation. Where do you live? That's segmentation. Then we get into micro segmentation. We start layering lots of segmentation on top of each other. And we start to go, all right, what do I know? Well, I know she's a female. I know she likes vegan tacos. I know she lives in LA. And all of a sudden I'm starting to get really micro, but that's still not personalization. That's still not like, hey, Jaime, I know you. And so are we getting there? Yes. Do I think that I'm with probably a lot of other brands where are we truly, truly personalized? Let's be real, we're not. And if a brand tells you that, I would really question, like, how personalized are you? And even if you know the person's name because they have your app and you're like, well, I know that her name's Jaime. What are you doing with that information? Right? Like, you're probably still not giving a personalized. So we're getting there just like everybody else is. And the goal is to take as much data as we have on you that can make your experience better and truly understanding the customer, right? I jokingly say it's like, when it's done well, it's great. When Amazon tells me, hey, you liked this, so you might like this, great. That is awesome, contextual, relevant offering. But when they know that I just bought an end table and they serve me up a ton of ads for another end table, well, I just bought an end table. Like, this isn't super personalized. This is not helpful. So when the relevant offer is shown to me based on what they know about me, then I start to go, all right, maybe this is personal. Maybe it's not. We don't know.
No, I think that's great. And that really tees up nicely to one of my questions is around customer segmentation, right? So you talk about, are you a vegan? Do you like vegan? Do you like beef? And I think, another really important piece is how you think about it within the areas of the funnel, right? So not only the personal preferences, but how are you thinking about customer segmentation as it relates to acquisition versus retention versus reactivation versus loyalty? Obviously, I would love to have you dive into the loyalty program as well.
Well, they're all different and they're all different ways to think about it, right? And I think a lot of times as marketers, what I see with folks is they're focused in one area, right? That's the acquisition team, or that's the retention team, or that's the earn them back team, right? And they all have their piece and they forget about the rest of it. And what I love about it is that it's full funnel, full approach, full circle, whatever you want to call it, fill the bucket. I don't care. There's lots of analogies. We can make lots of pictures that explain it, but what it means is that we have to understand that, like, just because you acquire them and they're like, well, our cost per acquisition was $3. Well, is that good or bad? How do you know? Well, it's better than what we normally do. That doesn't, you need to, I want to know lifetime value. I want to know how many fall out of the bucket. Like, you want to see all of it. So I think that's really important. Loyalty is one piece of it too. It's not the end all be all. We know that not everybody takes part in a loyalty program. I mean, Starbucks, the article just yesterday that was released said, Starbucks said they know that their loyalty customers spend more. They come to Starbucks more often. Well, yeah, this is not earth-shattering news, right? Your most loyal customers tend to spend more. That makes sense. And so is the goal to get everybody to be a loyalty member? Sometimes, but sometimes you just want to cater a really solid experience to someone who may not come every single day, right? So all of the buckets, all of the funnels, everything, it's important. They all have their own importance, and you can't do a full circle without one piece of it, right? You take out any piece of that and you're screwed, right? People say like, well, we lowered our cost of acquisition. Like, we just pulled budget from there. Well, how are you filling your bucket, right? You stopped giving that good centered experience. That's a problem because now your bucket's leaking. You stop trying to gain customers back. Well, that's a problem because now your bucket's just emptying out. Like, so no matter which piece of that experience that you stop, it ruins the rest of it.
No, I completely agree. And I think it's something that a lot of brands are really trying to bring everything together, but they're struggling to kind of de-silo silo everything, right? Because it's a
Mhm.
challenge, because a lot of brands have operated that way for so long. But I would love to hear a little bit more about the loyalty program. Like, what types of things are you thinking about for the customers for Del Taco as you build this loyalty program for them?
Yeah. So we have studied our customers like crazy, and probably of all the places I've ever worked, we've done the best job of really not just qualitative research, but quantitative research and understanding who they are and what they want and what drives them. And it turns out I've never worked anywhere where you ask a customer, like, do you like the price of this? Guess what they're going to say? They're always going to be like, I wish it was less money, right? Like, I could go to Walmart, always low prices. I go to Walmart and they're like, do you like the price of it? I was like, I wish it was cheaper. Like, I don't like 50 cents for toilet paper. I want it to be 25 cents. I'm always going to say that. So understanding the qualitative and the quantitative is very, very important, and where that information is coming from. Mm-hmm. And then looking at what are competitors doing? What is everybody else doing? Where do we fall in that umbrella? What drives someone to come to see us? And that's what I think you're going to see when we launch this, is what is it's really going to be impactful there. And I mean, obviously drinking the Kool-Aid, I believe in it because I was part of it, but I truly think that people will be impressed with what they see and how they're able to interact with it. And then it's an evolution. It's not the same way we used to say, like, people would launch websites and they're like, well, we launched a website 3 years ago. It's an evolution. You have to continue to take care of it and to put support into it. And you can't just you don't build a house and just let it go. You take care of it and you remodel it and do all these things. That's what our app will be as well. It'll continue to improve.
I love that. Absolutely love that. I think, one thing that's going to be integrated with your loyalty program is obviously the experience of it, right? The experience of how a consumer experiences it within the app, within in-store, within the web. So I think, obviously you have the technology set up for success to be able to do that. So I think it's also important to make sure you're utilizing that to maximize growth, right? So consumer experience is important for a lot of different brands. It's obviously imperative for Del Taco. So how are you thinking about the customer experience throughout that journey from web to app to in-store and everything in between?
So no stone left unturned, to use another vague analogy, but whether you're going, like, a lot of our customers come through the drive-thru, right? Like, how can we speed that up? What does that look like? But really looking, how do people interact with our brand? They're not coming to us and going, you know what, I really would like a fine dining taco experience. I want to come in, sit down, enjoy this taco. They don't want that. So why would I build an experience based on really spending hours with my customer? I'm not going to, right? We are a convenience play. They want really good, fresh food fast. That's what they want. They want food that isn't necessarily horrible for them. And people don't know that we slice and dice in our restaurants. It's pretty amazing. And they want to be able to come in, get that really good food, have consistency, have quality, and be on their way. Whether they're, what do you call it, like a dashboard diner where you're eating in your car, or you're just going through to pick it up on the way home, or you want, your kids want a special treat, and our shakes are amazing. But thinking about that and how technology helps that, streamlines that, doesn't make it more painful for a customer, but then they can have fun with it, because we are a fun brand. And there is a lot of fun and kind of cool nostalgia going all the way, over 50 years back, of Del Taco brand, which is pretty darn cool. So meeting the customer where they're at versus forcing them to come with us somewhere else.
I love that. And how are you measuring the success of that experience?
So similar to what I think it was Holly from Marriott was saying, was there are KPIs, right? We all have them. And what's the bottom line KPI? It's the actual bottom line, right? Is it helping drive business? Is it benefiting our customers? How are our guest relation complaints? Things like that. But then there's obviously the marketing KPIs of usage, time spent, things like that. But at the end of the day, no matter what those numbers show, if money's not there, does it really matter? So we look at all the different metrics. And I think of analytics as more of a game. And I think she mentioned this too, and how you get to the why. Why? Constantly asking that question. And it can be horribly disconcerting as a marketer. But whenever you look at an analytic going, well, what's the other numbers say? Well, how does this number attach to that number? And what am I missing here? Because data can tell any story you want it to. So making sure you have a full picture of all that data. And sometimes it doesn't tell you anything. It just tells you, we need to test this again. We need to try and do a do-over. And that's okay, but not just looking at it. Because I've had a lot of marketers in the past, they'll show me numbers and they'll go, look, it did great. And I look at it and go, well, what about that number? Oh, I didn't pull that because it didn't look as great. Well, that's a problem. So being able to look, ask why, and constantly reassess. So I think it's bringing a lot of that agile way of thinking, agile methodology to it.
I love that. And then are you also thinking about measurement differently for the app versus the web versus maybe customer experience in store as well? Are there
you
any
have to
KPIs that cross over? Yeah.
Yes, you absolutely have to. There's always going to be KPI, like money always crosses over, right? But there's always differences, because the reason someone comes to my website is not the same reason people interact with the app. It's a completely different type of consumer. And so when you look at time spent on the website, sometimes people will be like, well, they were really fast. Like, they're not spending a lot of time. What on my website would I want them to spend a lot of time doing, right? Like, there's not like a crossword puzzle. Like, it's like they're looking for a location, they're looking for directions. If they start spending a lot of time on the website, then I should be concerned. So we absolutely look at the numbers differently.
I love that. That's fantastic. Maybe building out their nutritional facts. So should I get the cheese or should I not get the cheese?
Oh Lord, I spend way too much time in my fitness pal trying to figure out, like, can I eat that today? I don't know if I can eat that today.
My motto is always get the cheese. So I'm going to pivot a little bit to the media side of things. So as we all know, there has been an incredible shakeup in the media landscape in the last year. It's pretty much one of the only things people are talking about outside of what my next question is going to be. So I'd love to really dive into that. So, how are you thinking about diversifying your media mix as we're thinking about iOS and privacy and all of those things that go into it?
Well, it's a constant battle. And if I said I had all the right answers, I would be a liar. I think I'm constantly learning, just like all my peers are, and we're constantly sharing. And the great thing about the restaurant industry is we have it's like a sorority, not a sorority, maybe a fraternity. Maybe I just offended someone by saying it was a sorority, but without the bad stuff. That was a bad analogy, but it's like a small, close-knit group of friends, and we all kind of share ideas and thoughts, and we talk about, like, well, what are you doing? Is that working for you? And similar to what Brand Innovators does, by bringing us all together to say, like, hey, do you guys just want to talk to each other? Yes, we do. Yeah, because if we all said, we can pretend like we have the answers, we don't have all the answers, and it is changing so fast. So we're constantly learning from one another, because that's a safer place to learn than anywhere else right now. But when I think about it, a couple years ago, we started looking at like traditional TV versus CTV versus all these things and going, well, it's just video, right? Like, what if we just called it video and like not had to look at it from traditional versus this, just video. And sound, right? Like, what's sound? Well, sound could be Spotify or it could be traditional radio. How do we look at that differently? And we slowly saw large corporations go from like having a traditional media team and a digital media team to like starting to blend them together, and then looking at buying traditional with a digital mindset. And how does that look? And I think we're still, like, I would like to say that's long gone, right? We've all moved forward from that, but I think we're still inching into that in some ways, that like people are like, so is that traditional? No, let's not use that word anymore. Like, let's just call it media and look at, like, is it video versus voice versus sound, and where it's showing up. And I think that's something that hopefully we can make even more ground on in the future.
I think that's a fantastic way to look at it. So coming off of that then too, is what is resonating with your consumers from a media standpoint? Where do you feel like they're engaging with the brand the most?
It's probably cheese. So when you show cheese and you show that, like, it's amazing. So it just makes you want cheese. No, but so today you may see that we launched stuffed quesadilla taco, which, let me be honest, it might be the best thing in the whole wide world, right? Like the best thing you're ever going to have. So if you, anyone who's watching, like, go eat one, like it's so good. And it's literally like a picture of cheese pulling. Oh, it's so good. So what's resonating? literally showing food helps, right? Like it's like watching the Domino's commercial and I'm like, I do want pizza. Like I
We
want
need that
pizza
in my
right
life.
now.
Yes.
Like while I'm eating my salad, and like whenever you see a picture of like someone smiling eating a salad, I'm like, why is she so happy? Like I'm never that happy when I'm eating a salad. So anywho, pictures of food resonate. Things that video resonates, right? When you can show someone quickly, because we don't, our attention span, as you can tell listening to me talk, my attention span's like 3 seconds. Like I can't focus because I'm ready to go, go, go. And I'm taking in media and I have like right on my desk right now, I have like 6 different screens of things happening and like trying to close them all down because I'm like, I'm on a Zoom. So it's being able to hit the customer with a message really fast, really quick. And a lot of times is done in video. It can be done in other ways too, but like we know that as a society, it turns out everybody stopped reading for a while. And so now when you go on articles, even on Forbes, it'll be like, do you want to listen to this article? Because they know nobody reads, like they figured it out too. So quick, short, to the point. Hey, here's what we have going on. Come see us. And frequency enough that they'll remember it.
I told you, always get the cheese.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. You knew. It was like foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing. Perfect tee up. Last question I have around media. Is there anything that you are looking to test into that you haven't tried before, coming into, the back half of the year?
Not just media. I think all things, like everything AI. I don't know if it would be the back half of the year. I feel like the year's already like, I feel like it's already 2022.
I know.
Based on like all these conversations, but AI is going to be a big deal. And watching other restaurants, watching hotels, watching all of these things. What are people doing? What's working? Like sometimes someone will go, this technology works, but if it can only penetrate to like 1% of your customer base, like, does it? Like it doesn't. I mean, it works 1% of the time. But the rest of those customers never get to see it or feel it. So figuring out how we can actually break through with AI will be really important. And then continuing to evolve with like privacy and all the things that like as marketers we're like, stop evolving. It'll be important to watch and see how we're able to pivot those things.
Yeah, I think that's great. My last question that I have for you before we move into Q&A. So I want to touch on everyone's favorite topic, COVID, pandemic, all that fun stuff, right? I only have one question around it, but the pandemic undoubtedly sped up the adoption of technology for brands and marketers, as well as completely changed the path to success for a lot. So would love to hear about what your team really saw through the pandemic and how you really pivoted to support what the customers were needing during that time.
Well, I got a new job during the pandemic. So my whole job exists because of the pandemic, right? They were like, technology speeding up. We should hire a marketing technologist. No, it's wonderful. The only positive thing, there might've been a couple, like I like my kids more, but like the only positive thing out of the pandemic was that it accelerated technology.
Yep.
And it did all these investments, even on the hotel side, all these investments that we were waiting on. We're like, we really want to be able to open doors like quickly with a phone. And they were like, nobody's going to do it. Like nobody's going to do it. And then the moment the pandemic hit, they're like, everybody's going to do it. Let's invest millions of dollars to do this. And you're like, that's fantastic. And then they'd go, we've been asking this for 3 years. They were like, you have 2 weeks to install all of these. And so it's been a wonderful, hectic problem to have. And the same with, for a lot of restaurants that aren't drive-through, it was curbside. It was park and get it or whatever they called it, to be able to. For Chipotle, they said, maybe we should look at putting in drive-throughs, right? Like that's what they did. But we all did that. We all looked at the pandemic and went, how do our customers want to get our food? How fast can we get it to them? Right? Third-party delivery. We saw that skyrocket because people were like, I'm not leaving my house. Like they need to bring this food to me. And then now we have a whole plethora of other issues as a restaurant industry, as a hospitality industry, whether it's labor or supply chain, whatever it might be. So like, catalyst and cause and effect. But I would say that out of that, we learned that technology matters. It's very important. And when done right, can really aid in the experience.
I love that. Awesome. Well, Erin, this has been fantastic. Absolutely loved our conversation and enjoyed our time. I still stand by the only thing that could have made it better was tacos, but still stand by it. I enjoyed it. I know everyone listening has as well. So with that, I'm going to open it up to any questions if they're available. Mm-hmm. I do see one within the Q&A. So someone mentioned impressive career in QSR and hospitality. So they asked, what has been the major differences for you?
Like in QSR and hospitality, or in like everything? Well, my walk into work, like from working in the casino industry, it will never be the same. I don't like walk past like wasted guys at 6 a.m. telling me how good I look. Like, who doesn't want that to start their morning? That's probably the biggest difference. But no, I would say it's not all that dissimilar. And so what's interesting for me is because I have jumped so many different industries, people will ask me, oh, well, you don't really know this industry, or you don't really know this industry because you have to have worked in it for 20 some years, right? Which is another, like, I could talk for hours on age discrimination and gender bias and unconscious bias, but neither here nor there. But in this case, they'll go, well, we only want someone who's worked for 20 years in the restaurant industry. And I always think like, it's really not that different, right? Like, cause like, once you understand a business as a marketer, and if you are a good marketer, I believe you can market anything. So if you understand the business, you understand what drives the consumer forward, whether it's a crave for a taco, a crave for a wing, a crave for a burrito, or a Vegas destination, or a getaway, or a meeting and convention guest, it's about driving that behavior. It's about marketing to that person. So I wouldn't say that it was never different. Who I worked for was different. I had great bosses. I had people I don't work for anymore. And I will tell you that that's what made the experiences different. It wasn't necessarily the industry. Like I loved working in Vegas. I thought it was the best experience. I loved working in hotels and resorts. I loved working at Wingstop. Like I can't think of a place that I'm like, oh, really hated that. But again, it was about understanding consumer behavior, what made the consumer want to do what you wanted them to do, and then helping drive that crave.
No, I think that's great. I have another question here for you that says, any advice for women earlier in their marketing careers who want to make it to a CMO level?
I have lots of advice. Some of it I can say out loud. We are taught as women that we need to care for everyone. We are taught as women, like I have done a lot of the lean in and like lots of years of therapy, understanding how I've become who I've become, right? Like if you ask my therapist right now, like I use in my day job a lot of masculine traits because that's the type of career I'm in, right? And it's a very direct type role. It's a leadership role, but you can't lose sight of who you are. And so one of the things early on in my career, I decided I'm not the right person for the job if they don't let me be who I am. And I know that sounds crazy because people will be like, no, you have to fit in. And for a long time, people would be like, Erin, you need to adapt. Oh, it's not that I'm not adaptable. It's that if it comes down to the core of changing who I am for a position, then that's not the right position for me, right? If I have to change who I am to be married to someone, which just let me say that I'm happily married, but like, if you have to change who you are, then that's not the right person for you, right? You have to be who that authentic person is, and it has to be embraced for it to work well together. And so my advice is do not change who you are. Stay your ground, be direct when you need to be. And I remember in Vegas, I was very young in my career. I was the only female at an all male executive table. And I was sitting there and I would leave, go into my office, shut my door and be tearing up. But I was never letting them see me cry, but I would be tearing up because it would be rough, right? Like I would have to be going at it, standing my ground. And one day the general counsel, who didn't sit at the table, but she had heard about the meetings, had sat in one meeting, she had pulled me aside, and it was a woman. And she said, people are going to call you a bitch. They are going to call you that. Do not change anything that you are doing. You are doing the right thing. The only reason they are calling you that is because you're a woman. And because of that, and it's not don't get me wrong. I'm not male hating. I love my male counterparts. I have like, this is not what that's about. It's about making sure that we claim our space, right? Occasionally you'll hear things get mansplained to me. And I always enjoy that. Like, the only way you can deal with that is to call it out and be like, oh, I do know how that works. Like, I've known how that works for 10 years, but like, no, explain it to me one more time. I'd love to hear it. Like, you have to, I choose to deal with it with humor. However you choose to deal with it, call it out, stand your ground, don't give up, and be who you are. And you will be successful. You will get there. You just have to keep going.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I could not agree more with all of that. Being your most authentic self is something that I will live and die by.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's see, another question here. With the changes in digital/food delivery, do you see this as a change in how Del Taco looks at future locations with regards to expansion?
Potentially. That's a fair question. Potentially. It just depends. It depends on what happens with it. People always go, so when the pandemic hit, we saw delivery store. Everybody saw delivery store. This is not a secret. When now the question is, like, it was interesting. Holly was saying, like, we're in recovery. And I kept going, are we in recovery? Because, like, have you watched the news? Like, it doesn't feel like we're in recovery. It doesn't feel like things are bouncing back. It feels like they were. And now we're going, oh shit, like, let's all batten down the hatches again. And that's concerning. But now the question is, what's going to happen with delivery, right? Is it going to taper off? Then there was like the whole, it's going to be the roaring 20s and like everybody's going to be out partying all the time and delivery is going to plummet. Like, there was that idea. That clearly hasn't happened. So what is going to happen? We're going to watch that. Will it have some, will it play into where locations are? Absolutely. Like, it would be silly if it didn't. Anywhere that our demand comes from plays into where those locations are based.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I believe those are all of the questions that we had in there. So I think we can wrap up. Erin, absolute pleasure. Loved this. Felt like it was a podcast of just talking. Maybe we'll start our own after this. Who knows? But yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to pass it back over to Victoria for closing remarks.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Erin, Jaime, thank you guys so much. Jaime, I had the same thought. I was like, wow, this should be a podcast. Great voices, great content, really covered the full spectrum.
Yeah, a new career move ame. No.
Yeah. And you have succeeded in making me extremely hungry. So I'm going to go get some sort of taco-esque thing with cheese.
For sure.
Good. Well, thank you guys for joining us today, to all of our viewers out there. So just closing us out, please keep in mind that on next Tuesday, 8:31, Brand Innovators will also be holding a consumer engagement live cast. So check out their website to register for that event. And then on the Media.Monks side, we're going to be sending out a couple follow-ups, some case studies on our partnership with a global CPG brand, Mondelez, and how we help them build a holistic view of their data across brands, regions, and data sources. So if you want to keep up on what's going on with data and see if we worked with some additional clients, take a look at your inboxes after this. But thank you all so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.